Happy day, everybody. The world's a better place because you are here to join us. My name is Matt Brown, and I am the host of the Productive Conversations podcast. And it is a Thursday, February 27th, 2025. And this weekend is the weekend known as Oscars weekend. The
Yeah.
Oscars, the film award show that everybody claims to not care about, but once nominations come out, everybody has something to say about it. So today, this weekend will be the weekend. We are going to give our annual Oscar picks that we do every year. This is our fifth Academy Awards we're covering. And let us talk about what took place during the 2025, the 97th annual Oscars. As I should say, let us react to or let us make predictions
Predictions,
for
yeah.
the 2025 Oscars. Ryan is with me today to discuss the Oscar predictions. What's up, Ryan?
Uh, Not much. I'm good. Happy to be here. Can't believe I got through pretty much all the best pictures. I'm shocked, truthfully. This
Mhm.
this year was behind. I only missed two. And
No
so that's
worries.
and last year I only missed one, this year I only missed two. So you know what? I've been doing pretty good.
Yeah, you got the gist of it. I was able to catch all of them this year at various times throughout the year, the calendar year, and some other ones thrown in there.
Yeah, I did
And
watch The
yeah.
Apprentice as well, by the way. So
Oh, did
I've
you
seen
really?
more. Yeah. So I've seen
Nice.
some more. I've seen more than just the movies on the list.
Right.
But we'll get into that. I'm sure we
Same
will.
here. I think it's really cool that the Oscar films are more accessible than ever now, and forever
Oh
will be
yeah.
with streaming. Okay, there really was a time you really have to go to the theater
Yeah.
every single
No.
day, all the time, unless you were, you know, in the industry and could get screeners.
Right, yeah.
But
Sent to
no,
you for voting or whatever, yeah.
exactly. No, you could just it's right there. And I think that's a good thing. So why don't we talk about this moment in the film
Hmm.
industry, the big extravaganza, the WrestleMania, the Super Bowl of the film industry in American film, I should say. And yeah, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Productive Conversations podcast on all podcasting platforms and YouTube. And don't forget to check out exclusive content regarding the show across all social media platforms. We're on Instagram at Productive Conversations Podcast, X and Twitter at Prod Couple Pod. We're on TikTok at Productive Conversations and Facebook at Productive Conversations. So the Oscars, 8 o'clock Sunday night, hosted by the great Conan O'Brien. I want to first talk
Ooh.
about that's a great host. And I really think he's the one true, though former, talk show host that really is loved by everyone. Nobody has a bad thing to say about Conan. And I've
Hmm.
been very vocal in my fandom for Conan O'Brien. I mean, not only a very intelligent person, such a great such a great interviewer, a genuine interviewer,
Yeah.
and he brings people together. He's a great host, hosted late night for close to 30 years. And there's a
Hmm.
reason why he is beloved and people don't have a bad thing to say about him. So now bringing him back in the hosting realm while hosting his very successful podcast for, you know, I think it's been about 6 years now. And his show ended in 2021, his late night hosting, now back to broadcasting. I think
Hmm.
this is a very warm welcome and it's going to be great. Then that was, a lot of people like to put hosts in some spectrum or realm, whether politics or whatever, but that's not Conan. He's just a great host. And I think that is what we need right now in this very intense world we live in,
Hmm.
especially the film industry has its ups and downs, how Hollywood was affected by the fires as well. I think this is
Hmm.
a great host to bring people together. I just wanted to start off with that.
Yeah, I think we've had actually a stretch of good hosts, to be honest with you. Obviously some better than others. I think Conan will definitely be top tier of them, but
Oh,
We've
absolutely.
had I think we've been lucky because there was a time when we had a string of really bad hosts, and that time was like recently.
Like
So
the Amy Schumer three-person host, that was bad.
yeah, and then
Um,
obviously Joe Coy.
for Golden Globes. Oh, you mean for the realm, not
I
only.
just oh yeah, I don't just mean the
Oh yeah.
Oscar. I just mean generally. We've had a lot of
Oh
bad
yeah, yeah.
hosts in the last like 5 years, and like this year and a little bit at the end of last year, we've actually had like pretty good
For
pretty
sure.
good mix of hosts. They've all done well. I liked Eugene and Dan Levy. Like
That was good.
everyone's kind of we've
Steve
had a
Martin and
couple.
Martin Short.
Yep, they've had a lot of really good hosts recently. In like this year in particular, which is good.
Yeah, and
Because
I like Jimmy Kimmel, but not everybody likes Jimmy Kimmel, and I
he
feel
was
that
fine,
his
yeah,
reaction
but
rubs off on people.
well,
You
yeah,
know,
he's got what his personal beliefs and his personality are always going to make him a difficult host now. Like
right?
from from now on, probably. So, I could see that. Conan less so, which is I would say, part of the reason why he's hosting.
Exactly. Great pick. Great pick. And let us see what he does. There is no doubt in my mind that he's going to do great.
Yeah.
Okay, so now to the films itself. Ryan, 2024. Before we get into our picks from as we do every year, we go through Best Picture, the acting
Mhm.
nominations, the writing nominations, and stuff like that. I mean, I could do every single one of these categories, but I understand we only have so much time, and but the ones that will make some noise. But the year in 2024 in film, the first full year after the strikes,
Mhm.
no more COVID excuses for the theater industry. Everything was back to normal. You could just watch a movie. And I think it was a successful one for the most part. Was there
Mhm.
anything that really stuck out? Was this an amazing year in film? Not necessarily. But I did like more original ideas. Still waiting for big studios to take original hits again. If
Mhm.
you remember when we did last year from American Fiction, the writer right away said, instead of just all these big budgeted IP movies,
Mhm.
$200 million, you can make 20 $20 million hits.
That
And
are
while
all
those
original, yeah.
films are, I feel there's a place for them. A24, they can only do so much. Your neons, your A24s, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But we need help. Those are indie studios for the most part.
Mhm.
But I do think for in general, it was a good year for film, even if these nominations are just fine.
Yeah.
I don't see an American classic
Yeah.
amongst this.
No, I don't either. I can think of probably one or two that I would watch again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Darn. Would
Yeah. One or two that I would watch again.
you like to say
So
those now or in the best picture
I mean,
segment?
sure. I mean, so I would watch Wicked again. I'm gonna
It
end up seeing
is
Wicked
an
Part
IP
Two.
when we just talk about IP and then
Oh no, it's IP, yeah, but it is.
fair
And
enough.
then
No,
the
I'm
other
just
one that
kidding.
I would probably watch again is Anora. I actually really enjoyed that
I'm a big Sean Baker
movie,
fan. Sean
and
Baker's
so
great.
yeah, so I think that one kind of to me is ended up being like from last year, the Poor Things.
Hmm.
I had very low expectations going into
Yeah.
it. And then I watched it. I was like, actually, this is one of my favorite ones. It wasn't my favorite one. It was just, but that I could see myself enjoying that one again. But obviously, we'll get into the rest of it from there. But yeah, I
Yeah.
could see me watching that one again. And then Wicked, like Barbie, is just I mean,
Hmm.
it's like Barbie. It's like a fun, whatever, a fun little movie that got nominated because it's done really well, essentially.
Yeah, I like
Uh,
Nora. Pretty much a nice conventional retelling of Cinderella in a way, but I think
hmm,
some relevant themes still uphold with a great Mikey Madison performance.
hmm,
And again, Sean Baker is one of my favorite filmmakers. His
hmm.
last four films have been incredible. Tangerine, The Florida Project, Red Rocket, and now this. Hopefully he can now get recognized and like a pure former indie guy. That movie Tangerine I
Yeah.
just mentioned was shot on an iPhone.
Yeah, no, actually, that's the one that I know from him previously. That
Hmm.
was his first kind of big, might have been his first ever, I don't know, but it was certainly his first big movie.
Yeah, and I like a lot of his stories about marginalized people right now,
Hmm.
people who are living in taboo situations,
Yeah.
still relevant amongst that. Big fan of Honora. So, why don't we just start transitioning into that talk with the Best
Yeah.
Picture nominations? This conveniently starts, excuse me, this
Very
conveniently
good.
starts our conversation with Honora first.
Hmm.
Why don't I just go through the Best Pictures really quick?
Yeah.
First, you're from Honora is nominated Alex Coco, Samantha Kwan, Sean Baker are your producers. We have The Brutalist, Ryan. Why don't we
Hmm.
start here in this 202-minute film with an intermission, about 3 hours and 45
Ooh.
minutes. You and I watched these on streaming.
Yes, we
We
did.
have here Nick
I own
Gordon,
it.
Brian Young, Andrew Morrison, and DJ Guggenheim with Brady Corbett as your producers. Ryan, The Brutalist, about a classic architecture story starring Adrian Brody as a Hungarian Jewish Holocaust survivor who immigrates to the United States, where he struggles to achieve the American dream until a wealthy client changes his life. Starring Adrian Brody, Felicity Jones, Guy Pearce, to name a few.
Hmm.
So, Ryan, this film that is very long and in two parts, tell me your initial thoughts on this epic film that I feel like would be released in the early 70s. That's where it really belongs. But now it's here in mid 2025 shot on. Now, if you're a big film nerd like me, maybe you like the Vista Vision filmmaking style that hasn't been used since the 60s and stuff like that. That's the one part of me that would have liked to go to the theater for it.
Okay,
But
yeah, I didn't notice
still,
that from streaming.
yeah, but regardless of the film itself, all of that
Hmm.
movie, tell me your initial thoughts. I'm very interested in what you got to say about it.
So we cannot stress how long this movie is. It
Mhm.
is a long movie, and I'm gonna say it's a long movie that is not about anything in particular. Um, which I did not like. I'll put that out there. That part of it, I think the acting was really good. All of it, not just Adrian Brody. All of the acting was very good. But we talked before on our regular show, the Tweak app, about a different one of the best pictures and how we're like the idea is good, but the execution we were worried about. We'll get to that later. But for this one, silly me, I assumed this was a real story. I assumed this
Oh,
guy
did you
was a
really?
real person.
Oh,
And when I found out that that's not the case,
he just
this
complete.
is
Yeah, it's a
this
completely
became
made up
I mean,
story.
yeah, this literally just became a story about an architect. That is the movie is it's a movie about an architect. And I understand that he's an immigrant who survives the Holocaust and he's got ups and downs. He goes against addiction and all those other things, but like it is essentially a movie about an architect and his on again off again friendship with a wealthy industrialist in Pennsylvania. Um
By the way, I want to say at this point, and I'll put it in the comments. Spoiler alert for
oh yeah.
these all this, and I'll
Yes.
put it, it's not in the comments. I'll put it in the description. But it was cool to see a returning Guy Pierce. You did awesome in that.
Yeah, and so like I said, every performer was great. Like the movie itself was so, in my opinion, devoid of captivating story that it actually, in a way, made it easier for all of the actors to really shine because
Mhm.
essentially this was just some dude's life. The dude's not real. They
Yeah,
had no constraints whatsoever. They wanted him to cheat. They didn't. He
building
didn't
this
cheat.
building
Right.
that he didn't need to really build. He just did it just
All right.
cause.
Yeah, this guy just wanted a building, and so he had this heroin addicted immigrant build it over many years, firing him multiple times. And so because it was so kind of like generic, right? In terms of the story was just man builds. And man with family builds, I should say, because there's family dynamics throughout the entire thing when he first gets to America, when his family gets to America, and then at the end. But essentially, it's man with family builds building. And so, because there was such a simple story here, every single actor got to inhabit a fully fleshed, realized person. They got to be real people. It was essentially just watching real people because there wasn't based on anything. There were no real constraints that they had to worry about. And so to me, that's what made the acting so compelling. I found myself interested in all of the performers, from the smallest parts to the largest parts. And I thought that all of them did a great job. I just personally don't understand how a movie without any real, like, a movie that is so introspective and personal, how they got that thing to go as long as they did. That was really my main problem. It was such a long movie for what is essentially just like an introspective story of a drug addict Holocaust survivor. And so to me that was hard to get over. That I felt like we hit some of the same beats multiple times.
Yeah, sometimes I felt like with watching the director, like, is he really just trying to flex what he learned at film school this whole time? In a
Yeah, it felt
way,
like a showcase. Yeah.
sometimes there's a place for that. Well, the art house indie film, indie theater like that, like,
Right.
but mainstream trying to get it Oscar nominations, it is an Oscar baity feel towards it. It's fine,
Is
but
it though? Like it is, but also like again, if you sit down and you listen to it and watch it, you have to be aware of the fact that in terms of Best Picture, not in
mhm.
terms of some of the other things like the performances, but in terms of Best Picture, this is a movie about an architect from Hungary. Like
Yeah.
Oscar Beatty, I guess, because of what period piece and the immigrant story
Hmm.
and the drug addiction. Like, yeah, there's the little things, but at the end of the day, this is just some dude. It's a story of some dude who never existed who builds a building. And so to me, you know, that kind of that puts it on the back foot, I would say. I think you're right. I think it was a great showcase for the director, for the people who filmed it and made the film decisions, and for the performers. But in terms of like what was written and the movie coming all together, it just was very mid to me
Hmm.
personally.
Yeah. Do you feel I do feel like the first half is much better than the second half. Um,
Yeah, because the first half hits all of the beats for the
yeah,
rest of the movie, and then
right.
everything after that recycles those beats in some order. The only thing in the second half that really caught my eye was obviously they introduced his actual family.
Yeah.
So it went from letters to his actual family to they're now here. And so that, excuse me, that was definitely a change. But other than that, the rich guy was still kind of a dick until he wasn't, and he was still addicted to drugs, but he was, working on it, and he still had to work menial jobs because he couldn't keep the architecture thing going. Like every single thing that happened in the first half continues to happen throughout the rest of the movie in some
Hmm.
order, and so like there was no new beats after his family got off the train. There was pretty much no new beats because then even when his family got there, they just kind of took the place of that host family from the beginning.
Yeah.
There was just interpersonal strife about his fidelity and his wife and so on and so forth. So, to me, I was like, yeah. Once you watch the first half, you've seen every trope that the movie's going to play with for the rest of the 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I feel like you just be exhausted after and there's just like when you watch like an epic movie,
Hmm.
which you can really categorize this, you
Oh
want to
yeah,
feel epic, you want to feel things are epic. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to date, like, when I think of these, you think of like the Lawrence of Arabia's,
right, yeah,
or the first Star Wars, like these
yeah.
elegant sets, long shots, all of that.
Hmm.
Those have those beats. Just after the second half, I didn't feel that, but
Yeah.
who
First
knows?
half, like I agree, did have all of that. It was
Yeah,
good first half, and then yeah, fell
and
off a little bit to me. But,
for sure, I like it different. This is mostly Pennsylvania. Not another immigrant goes to New York story. That's been
yeah, I
done
did
a
like
bunch
that.
of times. So I
Yeah,
like. There's probably more realistic. Not everyone went to New York City.
yeah, exactly.
So we could talk more about that as we move on. We have
Yeah.
a complete unknown though, the Bob Dylan movie.
Hmm.
Fred Berger, James Mangold, Alex. Heinemann. Pretty much, this is not his life story, but just a portion. I think it's from 61 to 66,
Hmm.
they say. While I think the performances were, again, similar to Bruce, the
Hmm.
performances were great. The music
Yeah.
was very enjoyable. The movie itself wasn't anything special for a
Hmm.
pretty generic, formulaic uh, music biopic. Musician starts out likely in New York or LA. They get discovered. They
Hmm.
have their ups and downs. Then they get their ups again. They have their big historic moment, and then they live off their career. Pretty formulaic in that sense, I felt.
Yeah. I mean, so from a rock and roll history standpoint, the Newport Festival is the most, probably the most important part of Bob Dylan's career.
Yeah,
So,
just killed his folklore,
right.
his folk scene, I should say, and then just became a rock star.
Right. And it was a huge, like I said, a huge thing. I would almost say to me, like I said, it's about a 6 year span, which is not a long time, but somehow they made it feel too fast. When I watched it, I was like, we
Mm,
got to the end, we got to this moment really fast. And it was a good moment at the end. And again, it is a moment that you need to basically build your entire film around if you're doing a Bob Dylan film. It's the only moment you can really pick out of his career and say, this is the thing that we need to make sure we cover. Um,
exactly. You could argue a little in the 70s, but then that's pretty much it.
yeah,
Like he
I
had
would say that this is
his
still debate.
motorcycle, he had his motorcycle accident, which I think they
Hmm.
kind of alluded to at the end of the
At
movie
the end when he
without
rides
saying
off
that.
on the
He just,
motorcycle, yeah.
yeah.
And
But
so like, yeah, that was clearly meant to allude to that. I would say if it were me, because of how rushed it felt, I didn't
mhm,
love that. Again, the
yeah.
performances were great. I thought the singing was very good.
Yes, it was.
And so that was a pleasant surprise because Chalamet sang, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
and I didn't love his singing in the Willy Wonka stuff. I didn't think he was that good.
I never saw
So
Willy Wonka
I was
stuff.
I was glad that this was better than the Willy Wonka stuff because I didn't like that. But I don't know. And obviously, this is like very nitpicky because it's not my movie. Someone else wrote it. But like, I almost wonder if they should have condensed. They should have cut some of that beginning out. We don't need I guess, frankly, the name, A Complete Unknown, required them to do this. But like, we don't need to see the unknown country, unknown folk star gets adopted by Woody Guthrie's crew and becomes a
Right.
folk legend. Like, I almost wish we had started
And we also
in
one of my
the.
like
Sorry,
is to go
yeah,
like
go ahead.
right. So I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Like agree with your point. Like start right there. He has this famous album cover with Ellie Fanning. Maybe that is good. I wanted some more of the characterization of Bob Dylan to come out. Like
Hmm.
why is he so strange? Why is he so reclusive? How does somebody who seems so shy have this voice and
Right.
stuff like that? I'm not much of a Bob Dylan historian, but
Right.
that was what the point of going to the movie, right? To learn something about
To
it. But
learn
it was
something,
just more
exactly.
documentary felt, which is some biopics it works. I just don't think it worked in this one.
Yeah,
Hence why the movie as a whole isn't like, oh my God.
but I do think that they should have done if they had started it at kind of like where he and Baez start their fling and they're singing together. If
Yeah.
they kind of started there where he's at the zenith of the folk scene, then I think they could have explored more some of the quirks about why Bob Dylan is such a solitary curmudgeon, at least,
Yeah.
historically. Obviously you can still play with the love triangle thing like they did.
Right. And
Which
they also
is
had
good,
like
it's compelling.
had a time in the 70s where their relationship had some big moments too. That's just, like unless they do the sequel.
Oh yeah, but I'm not even referring to that because you do have to make an endpoint, and I do think, roughly speaking, the endpoint for this was correct. I just think we should have spent more time, frankly, where Bob Dylan wasn't a complete unknown. I think that that
Yeah.
would have paced the movie better, personally, and it would have given more of the Dylan,
Yeah. Plus
the
no breakup
Dylan
scene with him in the
stuff.
first girl. Just you had to figure it out when
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I think that was kind of how it happened in real life, in fairness. So,
True, true. I was just curious
um,
though. And if it
but
made an
yeah.
impact. But I remember one thing I had this argument, my friend Marcus, who I argue with a lot. He is that typical hipster Brooklynite. We really went at it like a year ago about Bob Dylan's influence, and he went hard about Bob Dylan's this. I was like, Marcos, you could go not even to a Gen Z, you could go to some Gen X people and say who's Bob Dylan, they won't know who he is. Not saying, obviously he's a legend and important music, but I'm just
Mhm.
saying he's not, Elvis or something like Frank Sinatra.
So I mean, he does get a shout out in the song American Pie. So he's a big enough part to be linked with Elvis and Sinatra and the day the music died and all that. I would say that it's tough because you're right. People don't listen to his music anymore, but people don't really listen to folk music anymore. And as this movie covers, folk music is how he started, right? So I think his impact on music far surpasses his modern day recognition.
Yeah,
Um, which simply means that movies like this can help inform people. But in terms of this specific movie, to get back to what we were talking about, I this one was again mid to me. I would put it above The Brutalist, but it's still in the middle of the pack of my favorite movies from the Best Picture category.
hear that. Now we have Conclave,
Hmm.
based on the 2016 novel. The film follows Ralph Fiennes, or it's Rafe Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, Jim Lithgow, Sergio Castellitto, and Isabella Rossellini. In this film, Cardinal Thomas Lawrence, played by Finesse, organizes a conclave to elect the next pope and finds himself investigating secrets and scandals about major candidates. I have to say, man, in this new Pope Who Dis movie, um, it's really just we just have to say the elephant in the room. How I'm not saying anything. I hope this doesn't happen at
Right.
all, and
Yep.
we want Pope Francis to be okay. But wouldn't it be wild if we're about to have a conclave
As Conclave
relatively
wins,
soon? Mhm.
potentially. Yeah, no, that would absolutely be wild. Not for nothing, this is horrible to say. I do think the Pope's condition probably is responsible for the late push that Conclave is making with voters. Just gonna
And
put
that's
that out
dark.
there. It's very dark, but it's top of mind. People are thinking about a conclave. People are drawing that comparison. I will say that this was my favorite of the Best
Mhm.
Picture noms. I would put this at number one, even above Anora. That doesn't mean I think it will beat Anora, but
Oh, I
um,
should say, by the way, or no, I'll wait till the end after we say that.
yeah.
So let's look.
But I do think that Conclave was my favorite.
No.
The performances were great. The movie itself, like in terms of like the way it looked and the way it was filmed, I thought was great. And also, it was an interesting story. Now, it is adapted, so it's not completely original, but it's not a major IP. People were not,
Yeah, I
talking
wasn't
about the
familiar with the book.
Conclave book like Harry Potter or anything like that. So
Mhm.
it wasn't a major IP, and so for that reason, it was different. The ending, a lot of people didn't like the ending of Conclave.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say
Do you
I
feel like it was for spoilers like a so pretty much the Pope that is anointed admitted that he was born
he's
with woman part.
intersex.
Yeah.
Well, both. He was born with both.
Yeah.
He's so
Surprise.
yeah. So
And
I
then
and
and
that
then and then it's just like, okay, the end.
right. And so to me personally, and again, this my reading of the ending is probably why it's my favorite, and
Mm.
does not mean that anybody else would agree. I think some of it is just my own Catholicism and my own religious beliefs and whatnot. But the idea that again, so to be just to make sure we're like super clear, the guy Pope Innocence is what he the name
Yeah,
he
that's what he picked himself.
um Pope Innocence is the name he chooses. Pope Innocence, and this shouldn't matter, but I wanted to say, based on what I watched and how I understand human parts,
Yeah.
has got a dick and balls. He just also has ovaries.
Yeah.
He's got both. Okay. Want to make that clear. So if you strip the new pope down, looks like a totally normal dude. Inside though, you find that not totally normal. And in fact has woman parts. And a lot of people in real life, if that got out, would be called a woman pretty much immediately, because that's what we do. And so I found the idea that the Pope internally, not externally, nobody else knows, but the Pope has this connection to women, has this connection to a marginalized community. I thought that that personally was actually powerful. When
Mhm.
you look at faith, I mean, faith, it's in the name. It's sometimes you just don't know. You just have to take it blindly. That's kind of why it's called faith. And so to have a symbol within the Catholic Church, within the highest level of the Catholic Church, the Pope, to have him symbolically represent women and more marginalized communities, especially in regards to the Catholic Church. And the movie does a very nice but subtle job of highlighting the role that women don't play, frankly, in the Catholic Church. To have somebody who has that symbolic understanding, even though again he grew up as a guy, he didn't even know he was this until much later on. I think that that's powerful for someone who believes in Catholicism. Symbolism is powerful in Catholicism. Symbolism is powerful for a person of faith. And the idea that the Pope symbolically understands and experiences these struggles, even if it's never explicitly mentioned, I think that that's powerful to Ralph Fiennes or Phineas's character. Uh, I think that that would be powerful. If I was a priest and I knew that, I would find power and I would find, grace in that knowledge, even if it was never shared. Knowing that that was symbolically happening would restore my faith. And they make a point to
Mhm.
show his character has lost his faith throughout the movie. So to have that last affirmation of faith, I think was a good ending for the movie and for that character. Now, again, if you're not a Catholic, you're like, well, I don't care about that, and that makes perfect sense. And then also, if you are watching this from a very critical perspective, like we tried to do, it's entirely plausible this ending was added for Oscar Beatty reasons.
Yeah,
Entirely
I
plausible.
I don't know if this is the same. I don't know if this is the same as the book. I just don't
Yeah, I
know.
don't either. But
I don't
again,
have enough
very,
time to
very
look into it,
powerful
but
to me personally as a symbol. But if you're not a Catholic looking for symbols, then I can see why it didn't make a lick of sense because it did come out of left field. It just came out of nowhere. They're like, hey, here's the thing. Um, which, yeah, I mean, yeah.
no problem there. Now we have Dune Part 2, the sequel to Dune from 2021.
Hmm.
And in this one, it follows Paul Atreides as he unites with the
Atreides, yeah.
Atreides, and he unites with the Freeman people of the desert planet Arrakis to wage war against House Harkonnen. Now, I watched this back a year ago, so I don't really
Yeah, I've
remember
watched
much.
a long time ago. I do
But
remember.
it is got another nomination. It was fun, visually pleasing, great acting work, awesome sci-fi. But I
Why
don't
is
even
this
know
movie
why.
nominated?
Yeah, I don't know.
Can I say that? And I
I
hate to
just
say,
don't know.
did they not know that Chalamet was going to do another movie?
Then
Do
they
you
needed
think?
him.
And so
That's
they
so
needed to
weird.
get Chalamet in, and so they were like, "Oh, we'll make Dune work." And then
Jeez.
he made a different, more Oscar-y movie, and they're like, "Well, we've already said Dune," so they just left them
A
both
lot
in.
of people love those Dune movies.
I
Sometimes
mean,
I
they're
think it's good.
good, but
Yeah. Sometimes I think the fan was a bit overrated, but I was like, I don't
I
know.
watched
I
the
just think the
show
hype.
recently, like the
Oh,
backstory show on HBO. I forget
I
what it's
haven't seen
called,
that
but
yet.
it's pretty
I
good. But
I pretty much watched these to see. I saw them back to back for the first
yeah.
time a year ago, and when it came out. So,
I'll say this is better than the first one. I like this better
oh,
than Dune
10
Part
times better.
One. Um,
Yeah, it pretty much the first one was a whole entire movie for setup, and then it all
yes,
comes out to here, and it was a good climax. But
yeah, it's
you
about to
know,
get even more weird and confusing. I think it's gonna fall off hard, and it's gonna become like
yeah, there's
only for
supposed to be a
Dune
third
people.
one. There's gonna
Oh,
be a
there's
third
probably gonna
one.
be a bunch because there's a whole bunch of books.
Yeah, I know with
And
Anna
so
Taylor Joy coming out this year.
yeah, and none of that makes a lick of sense to me. I barely understood what happened in this one in terms of like the Bene Gesserit and who's whose mom and how did
Yeah,
all this that
right.
right.
Yeah,
Again, if you're a fan of Dune, this is a great. It seems like this is a very
well-made adaptation, especially compared to the old Dunes, which were very low budget, I think.
Yeah,
They
the
certainly
David
look,
Lynchian ones.
yeah, they certainly look
One,
low budget, but
the Sting.
yeah. I mean, there's been like five, and they've all
Oh,
felt very
really?
low budget.
I've
Yeah,
only seen the David
the Lynch
Lynch
one, yeah.
one.
But there's actually many of them, and they've all been pretty low budget. So I would say that this is finally the movie that a lot of fans really wanted to see because of big studios behind it with a big director and big actors. And I'm happy for them. This is not an Oscar winning movie. It is an Oscar nominated movie for reasons that surpass my understanding. But a lot of people like it. And you know what? I kind of like it when successful movies get some love too. And
Yeah,
Dune, whether I think it makes sense for a Best Picture, was very successful, more successful than many of the other ones on this list,
right. It is
monetarily
the
speaking.
clearly the
So,
highest rated.
right.
Um,
Exactly.
the
It made
highest
the most
rated
money
one.
of all these movies, I would say, except for probably Wicked. So like
Hmm.
for that reason I like that it's there. I do like that part of it because it's acknowledging like, hey, everybody really liked this thing. That popcorn bucket was a cultural phenomena, right? Like I do like that part of it and I like what that stands for. I hope that that means in the future some like superheroes and other such movies, if they're good, can at least get nominated for these things since they're the movies that everybody has freaking watched. You know what I mean? Not like The Brutalist or I'm Still Here. But yeah, so I like that, but that it was a fine movie, middle of the pack. I would put it above The Brutalist probably. I'd probably put it next to A Complete Unknown if we're being totally
Yeah. So the way the
honest.
Oscar voting works, that you do it by you list your
Yeah, you're ranking,
favorite.
yeah.
So
But
then we have,
that's yeah.
yeah, that's what we have there. We have Emilia Perez.
Hmm.
Film follows the Mexican cartel leader Carla Sofia Gascon,
Yeah.
who enlists a lawyer, Zoe Zaldana, to help the cartel leader to disappear and transition into a woman. So this movie has made a lot of noise, for good or
Hmm.
bad. This French produced Mexican film that has Spanish and English, and it's a musical. And I'm definitely intrigued by your opinion of this film, Ryan, once and
Hmm.
for all after seeing it. For me, I just thought it was very campy, silly, while I do actually think the plot is very interesting. And in fact, if done right, it could have been 100 times better. But
Yeah.
for a film that is critically mixed to negative reviews, and then also audiences not falling in love with it, it is surprising that it's here with 13 nominations. I'll tell you my theory on why I think that is the case, but I first just want to hear your thoughts
Yeah.
on the film in general.
So I agree with you. I was expecting to hate this movie because we covered, like I said, we covered on our show three times on the Tweet Cap
Yeah,
that
just
one
on a
song
cultural
in this whole thing
standpoint.
yes. And so I was expecting to hate this movie. My wife, who watched it with me, was expecting to hate this movie, and neither one of us hated this movie.
Hmm.
There are movies on this list that I disliked more than Amelia Perez. Honestly, when again looking at the list, I think it might actually almost be more memorable than Dune or potentially even The Brutalist.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
like,
I think so in a way in the
yeah.
for the influence it made. Yeah, you could say
Well,
that.
besides the influence, I think genuinely I found more enjoyment from the movie
Yeah,
than I
yeah.
did in
Like
those
it's like
two.
the idea of if you enjoyed name a if you enjoyed Shrek in the way of that and the
Sure,
Brutalist in
yeah, yeah,
that. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
But I do feel like it's more Oscar-y than Dune. Maybe that's because of the story and the characterizations and so on. But the performances were, whew, they were bad.
The
They
exception is
weren't
always
great.
Zaldana. She did
Zoe Saldana
somehow
did good.
she
Although
did
I
good.
will say
Selena Gomez was really bad.
Selena was horrible. But my thing with it is so Selena Gomez didn't sound. And I actually talked to some folks who after because there is backlash from the trans community and from the Mexican community. I wasn't able to talk to any of my trans friends or trans colleagues or whatever to
Mhm.
see if they had seen it and what they thought. I did talk to a couple of people who are Mexican that I know and asked them about it. and they did see the movie. And really the two big things. They thought that some of the hate was overblown because like it's about a
Hmm.
cartel leader, so of course it's going to
Yeah.
paint Mexico as violent. It's about the violent part of Mexico. Like that's the whole point of it. It
Right.
wasn't saying like all day, every day in Mexico is bad. It's saying the cartels in Mexico are bad, and I mean I think we all agree with that.
Yeah. Right.
However, he, what they said, it was multiple people. They said, firstly, that the accents weren't there. They didn't own. I mean, obviously, the one person who was from Mexico sounded like they were from Mexico, but Selena Gomez did not, and actually neither did Zoe Saldana, which is why they added those two lines. Zoe Saldana, all of a sudden, after doing that whole first part of the movie, when she's in the UK, right?
Yep.
And Amelia Perez, now completely transitioned, comes up to her. When they say, "Are you from Mexico?" and she says, "No, I'm from the Dominican, but I studied in Mexico, and then I went to school in Mexico and became a lawyer there."
That's your one ex
And
machina to
and that was
fix
to
it.
explain why she doesn't sound Mexican, right? And but granted, they did that after a whole very serious, like a whole bunch of stuff. They transitioned the character of Amelia Perez into Amelia Perez. She had multiple songs and all this stuff. And then Selena Gomez likewise had like a throwaway line in English of "Are we going back to the United States?" To again, that was the ex machina to say, all right, Selena Gomez is from the United States, even though she's living in Mexico. That's why, even though she's speaking Spanish, she sounds like she's from the United States. And so that kind of felt like a cop out to me. I feel like maybe one of them, like if because again, Zoe Saldana did well. So sure, if you want to keep Zoe Saldana and just throw in that one line to be like, listen, everybody, she's a great actress. She fits the role well. She doesn't have the accent, but we're gonna fix it by saying she's not from Mexico. Fine. But to do it twice at the very big, twice very close together as well. They did Selena Gomez, and then like 3 scenes later, they did it again with Zoe Saldana, which again was multiple scenes after we met that character. I think that that was a big. I noticed it, and that was something that really upset them. And also the ending. They said the ending of this movie was incredibly offensive. That was what they said. They said that
In terms of what, like the character
the
death, or is this that?
parade,
Oh,
the
okay.
parade with the singing and the paying homage to Amelia Perez as if she was Mary. Mexico's an incredibly Catholic
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
country.
So this is
They
how
would
your way.
never do that. They would never do that. It would be, and when put that way, I was like, all right, I get why Mexico was upset with the movie. I get why they didn't want to show
Again,
it.
did a Frenchman did this?
Well, and right, again, a Frenchman maybe doesn't have the same affinity for Mary in the Catholic tradition, and maybe they wouldn't know that in Mexico that would be a big no-no. And so they're like, this is an interesting thing we can do to play off of like the religiosity of Mexico, right? And call Amelia Perez a saint. But it was offensive is essentially what happened because of that. So those are the things that I learned about the offense. I wanted to share that since I've seen everywhere written how offensive the film is. Um, but yeah, I would say that to me, I didn't hate it. I really didn't hate it. I thought I was going to, and I did not. I wouldn't watch it again because none of the performances, with again the exception of maybe Zoe Saldana, was worth it. But it was an interesting idea for sure. And I like that it was an interesting idea. I like that they tried something unique. And I think in some ways they pulled it off. They just also didn't pull it off in a lot of other ways.
And honestly, probably somebody, a native of the country, probably could have naturally fixed that.
Right.
And just glancing at some articles that organize it thanks to AI, some of the reasons this off the transgender representation, we have a glad representative quote saying it seemed like the filmmaker was painting trans women as liars, and they called it a profoundly retrograde portrayal of trans women and a step backward for trans
I
representation.
didn't. So obviously, I'm probably speaking out of school, but I don't care that much. I'm not a trans person. Uh,
Yeah, me neither.
I didn't get that at all. I didn't believe that that was transgressive to trans people at all. To be honest with you, I didn't. I mean, obviously the story was about transitioning, and I can see the one complaint I can see is it's clear that, or it's unclear, I should say, why Amelia Perez transitioned. It is unclear.
Yeah, and that's
It
one of
is
the things it says too. So
yeah,
was this just a cop out? So this is how I'll get out of my out of my
right.
crimes by transitioning.
And so I would say that even if that's the case, let's take that reading of it, that this was not a genuine transition. It was a transition to try and avoid doing criminal time. I think the second half of the movie kind of disproves that, frankly. But also, I think that they do a very good job. I mean, they have a whole song croaked out in Israel. And I do say croaked out because only one of them was singing at all.
Yeah, and by the way, no memorable songs for a musical.
I
They
mean,
stuck it out. There was catchy
the
stuff there, was fun,
yeah,
the lines, but I'm just saying,
sure, yeah, no one's gonna be singing these songs at
yeah,
cabarets, but
right.
they had that whole scene in Israel where he basically says, "I can transition your body, but I cannot fix their soul." You know what I mean? And that was not about trans people, by the way, in case you thought that there was. That was clearly about the fact that he was very much aware that this was a criminal who was transitioning
Yeah.
and was trying to explain to this lawyer, like, I don't think you should do this. I don't think you should be working with this person. This person is probably dangerous, so on and so forth. Again, second half of the movie, we see that it was probably a genuine want for transitioning because they turned their life around in a lot of ways. And then the point of the movie is that, and this could be a part that trans people would maybe be upset with, is it doesn't really matter what you do on the outside. The things you've done and the person you were will always come back to get you. And I understand if you are trans, that would be a non-negotiable. Like that's not a good message for you. I think we should take a step back and understand that this person was again a drug cartel boss.
Yeah, right.
It's about that. It's about that you can change as much as you want. You can change the way you look, you can change the way you act, but he, as Amelia Perez, when right? When she was a man and she was running a cartel, she killed a lot of people.
Right.
That's the point. It's why she does what she does later, but the point is that good deeds now don't erase bad deeds before. I don't know who does or doesn't subscribe to that worldview. I'm not asking that you should or shouldn't. I'm saying that's clearly the worldview of the movie, and I don't think it has anything to do with transitioning. I think people in the trans community overshot on this one, in terms of their outrage. Again, there's little mini things, but I think they tried actually quite hard. Whereas again, with the Mexican out backlash, they didn't try that hard.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they didn't do
Right.
anything.
I
Like
love
that
the
was it.
just some of the others people were annoyed by the drug trafficking issues, where somebody went as far as to call it a narco musical.
It
But
was sort of.
if
But
you
what's
just
wrong
were
with that?
curious, well, they says this here. The film is criticized as an insensitive caricature to drug traffickers. Pretty much, that's what they're saying here. Lyrics like of the song "Papa," alluding to a daughter's memories, where in English it's translated, "You smell like my dad, like Diet Coke with ice, lemon, sweat, mezcal, and guacamole," were described as simplistic, ridiculous, and
Yes.
ridiculous.
So we'll have to move on to the rest of them, but I want to say that too. I obviously watched it with subtitles.
Yeah.
So I think there's a non-zero chance this dude Google translated the lyrics to every single one of these songs. Um, they did not make sense in English. None of them. Like I said, and that song was a perfect example. Just a litany of random things, some of them vaguely racist. The
Right.
last song as well didn't make a lick of sense. They were just separate lines sung back to back to back to back. They were not connected with one another. So yes, I think that, and that goes back to what you said. I think if a native Mexican made this movie, even a musical version of the movie, which was always going to be a hard sell, I think it would have been better.
Yeah, just two
Genuine.
things I think it's important with this film, then we will move on.
Hmm.
Just to clarify what the director said, Jaquez Ayudard.
Hmm.
Several statements by the film director Jaquez Ayudard generated controversy. In an interview, he implied that he had not studied the Mexican context in depth. He said, quote, "No, I didn't study that much. What I had to understand, I already knew a little," end quote. Although these statements originally in French were translated at the time by someone else. In another interview, Ayudard stated that, quote, "Spanish is a language of emerging countries, of modest countries, of poor people and migrants." That's what he literally said. Ayudar later claimed that his comments were taken out of context, that he actually has a great appreciation of the Spanish language. Quote, "What has been said is the opposite of what I think." Man, it just seems all these clashing of cultures just can't come up with how to
Hmm.
control this. And that's
Yeah.
why I think when they opened up Academy voters, somebody said they think that just Europeans, Academy voters, like this kind of trashy, artsy type of film.
Hmm.
That may have been a tribute to it. We won't know. That's just some theories. That was the biggest theory, and we do
Hmm.
have other things to talk about, but it's just a strange one.
That
And
is a
if
strange one.
anything, this film will be known as the Emilia Perez Oscars. We'll leave when we talk about the nominees, about Gascon being
Yep.
nominated, and then her comments, but quite a story with that one.
I agree.
Yeah. Then we have I'm Still Here, the Brazilian film. Maria Carlo Bruno Rodrigo Teixeira Martin de Clement Toneri. I do have to admit I lied. I just straight up forgot this film. I just missed one. I just straight up forgot. I won't lie.
So I wanted
So
to see this one. This one is
so
actually not on streaming yet.
yeah, I know a lot of people have complained about having actual access to this film.
Yes.
Like even finding a art house film, an
Hmm.
art house theater to find
It's
it.
hard to find this
Unfortunately,
film. Yeah.
the Alamo is not playing this type of
No,
film.
they weren't, and I was upset by that. But it did look interesting. It was one of the first ones I wanted to watch.
Yeah, and by
Um,
the way, it says here it stars Fernando Torres and Fernanda Montenegro as Eunice Paiva, a mother and activist coping with the forced disappearance of her husband, the distant politician Rubens Paiva, during the military dictatorship in Brazil. And it's based off a memoir.
yeah,
And this
and
actually
there's a
happened.
lot of this stuff happening. A lot of parallels to this stuff that's happening or happened recently in Brazil. Again, to that description. So I would have liked to see this film. I did not get to see it. So I won't. Listen, no one is expecting this film to win Best Picture, so I think that we could
Probably the
safely.
best international film though.
Sure, yeah, but it's just not gonna probably be the Best Picture, so we don't have to cover it too much. But I found it interesting based on what I know about it, so I would definitely recommend people watching it. I plan on still watching it.
I like that. I would like to see it too. We also have Nickel Boys. I love Nickel Boys. I really enjoyed it. So Nickel Boys, based on the 2019 novel The Nickel Boys. The story follows two African American boys, Elwood and Turner, who are sent to an abusive reform school in 1960s Florida. The
Hmm.
film is inspired by the Dozier School for Boys, a now closed Florida reform school notorious for its abusive treatment of students. And the big thing here is the film was shot in a POV setting. Some people might like it, some people don't. I personally like it. Now, of course, the movie about racism and overcoming it's been done many times. However, I do feel with this version of it and doing it in a little point of view does make it original. And though it only got two nominations, unfortunately, I do appreciate at least it getting recognized
Hmm.
with this nomination. And Ramel Ross, the director and writer, I'm excited to see where he goes from here.
Yeah. So this was the second one that I was not able to see. However, I do want to add just from again the research that I had done when I was preparing to see it and all that stuff. Another thing that I think does make this different than just like you said, rote movie about overcoming racism in the 60s, which has
Racism is
been done
bad.
in the 60s especially, right? And so I do think that the looking at it from the lens of that of like these reform schools, is an
Oh
interesting
yeah.
choice. That is not a setting that gets explored a lot for the obvious reason of people don't like to watch children get abused. But we are also, I think, I mean, we're seeing a time in our country, put the race stuff aside, where people are looking to go back, right?
Put
And
a dunce
this,
cap on.
yeah, and this kind of thing was more popular if you go back. Like there, we stopped doing this because we realized how violent and horrifying the treatment was. But back in the day, this was just toughening people up and fixing whatever. And so I do think that that is an interesting setting for our current time, right? And of course, an interesting setting to change up the generic, Florida is racist in the 1960s, which everybody knows. It's hasn't even changed that much, some would say. So, like I think that, to me that's where I landed on that. I think that that's an interesting addition to this kind of, canon.
Yes, now we have the substance from
Hmm.
movie. That's the only
Hmm.
way you're able to see it, and for the most part. But movie, the 2024 body horror film, directed by Corley Fargett. It follows a fading celebrity, Elizabeth Sparkle, played by Demi Moore, who, after being fired by her producer, who is Dennis Quaid, due to her age, uses a black market drug that creates a younger version of herself, Margaret Qualley, with unexpected side effects. A, I can't, I don't think this is a rewatchable movie, but I do think it's very good, very gross, very
You
very
like that?
gross. I did enjoy it for the most part. The ending was the depressing, also gross. Person just gets splattered on her walk of fame, and then just some random street cleaner just wipes her up. Goodbye. That's how it ends. I've heard a lot of people on film Twitter feel like the movie was like 90% there, and they hated that ending. I didn't mind the ending, but I can see why it was disliked. But it was just so gross. Even just the shrimp eating from Dennis Quaid was gross. Everything was
Oh
about
yeah,
it.
it was a body. I mean, it was meant to be gross. The whole movie was
Yeah.
meant to be gross. And I didn't mind the gross at all. I actually don't mind body horror. I think it's great. For most of the movie, I thought this was going to probably be in my top three. I was like, this is
Mhm.
going to end up right up there with Honora and Conclave in some order. And then we got to the part where it was Monstruoso Elisu.
Yeah.
And the
Pretty much
movie,
this creation of the two
right.
people together.
And
The
that
fusion
whole,
of Mark
right.
Qualley and Demi Moore.
And that whole thing, that whole sequence, so on and so forth, put it from what I thought was going to be a top three movie for me this year to the unquestionable worst movie I watched for this podcast.
Ever?
Unquestionable, not ever, not
Oh.
ever, but the unquestionably for this episode of the podcast, watching these movies to determine the Oscars, it was unquestionably the worst one that I watched, and it did that in approximately 12 minutes. In
Ooh,
12 minutes, it went from a top three to the worst one that I watched. And
not
I
easy
had
for a
to
movie to
guess,
do that.
if I had to guess, if I watched Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here, they would both be better than The Substance because of the ending. The ending was trash. I'm not even going to give it any more time. It was bad. I would honestly,
But could you tell us
we're just spoiled.
what
Yeah,
made it bad
but
for you?
I will, but I'll say this before I do that. If you're watching the movie, there's a fight scene. Turn it off right there. Turn it off right there. Come up with a different ending in your head.
End the movie there.
End the movie there. Come up with a different ending in your head. Okay. So first and foremost, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
So she's trying to eliminate her younger self, has second thoughts, right? Then that younger self wakes up. They've already seen each other, which is not supposed to be possible. And now she wakes up again and ends up taking the activator to make a clone again. And obviously, that creates the monster that we see at the end. That monster then puts on a face covering or takes like a painting or a picture of Elizabeth Sparkle and just wears that. Again, completely grotesque and monstrous, has multiple like heads and all that stuff, but just the main one, there's no neck either. Just cover it up. Walks around backstage. No one sees the problem with that. No one
Yeah.
recognizes that she's deformed. Then she gets on the stage. None of the dancers recognize it. Then she starts talking, and no one recognizes that she doesn't sound right. It isn't until the mask falls off that everybody freaks out, and then the blood shoots everywhere, gets all gory, blah blah blah, ends right. The ending made no sense. The ending was not deep. I get what they were saying. Her face on her, no, it wasn't deep. It wasn't thematically beautiful. There are ways to have done that. She could have sacrificed herself to let the younger her get what she wanted and died, right? She could have killed her younger self, actually, and then just been this decrepit old woman forever. Honestly, at one point, I thought she was going to wake up from the car accident at the beginning. I was like, all right, well, she wakes up from a car accident at her Hollywood Walk of Fame and recognizes, like, you know what? That was a wild dream and I don't actually need to change. But nope, all of it was real. Everything happened. All those people just ignored the monster that walked past them.
Sounds like you were happy
She
she was literally wiped away.
Yeah, honestly, I was. I just wish that the film had also been lost. That part of those scenes had been lost. That's the only thing I wish is when she got wiped away, someone burned that part of the film. But say
Yeah,
la
I
vie.
haven't done. I only saw it 2 days ago. I haven't had time to research the motive on that. Why that
There
ending?
was none. I looked it up. It was like, oh, because the monster and like, symbolizes the way we see her. No, there was
Yeah,
ways to do that. There are ways to do that.
and
If
like
sh There are
we've
ways
seen
to
it
do that.
plenty of times before. Person is old, they want to live their youth again. How do they do that?
Right.
That's been played a lot, and something I thought watching into this that can they reinvent the wheel this time within? And yeah, they didn't. I think they definitely tried to, but it
I don't
just
know
fell
what they
flat.
tried. I
And
don't know what they tried.
I just was just really grossed out. Didn't have much care or motivation. Didn't have hate, but
So the gross
I
out,
just I
I
just
don't mind.
I just
I
was
didn't
really
mind the
grossed out
blood.
by it.
I didn't
I
mind the
don't know for
blood
the
or anything
most
like
part too,
that.
but for that monster, do you think we see people this Halloween get a good
No,
costume?
because it made no
Uh,
sense. You're gonna see more people dressed as what's her name, Sue.
yeah.
Yeah, because that made sense. Sue was the bad guy. This monstrosity thing was a complete addendum, and it made no sense. There was two ways to end it. Sue can win, or Elizabeth can stop Sue. Those are the two things. This monster thing was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And by the way, they could have done the gross out stuff if she had just killed Sue and did it herself as Elizabeth Sparkle. Whatever, doesn't matter. Moving on.
Well, hopefully Severance and the innies and outies don't have this tension.
I started
But
that today, actually,
oh,
Seven.
did you really?
Mhm.
Oh man, Ryan, feel free to send me your theories and thoughts. I really
Oh,
enjoy it a lot.
we're so early,
Like the
and
very
I
good.
don't.
Hey,
I
trust
saw the
me.
first episode and like half the second. So
Yeah, once after that, it all starts coming together. It's a lot of good filler, but definitely want to hear your thoughts. But also, just Wicked is your final best picture, and it'll be the rest of the show will be easier to talk from there since most of the nominations are all sharing.
from these, yeah,
Yeah, but we have Wicked, adapted from the 2003 stage musical by Steven Schwartz and uh,
and the book
Winnie
from before
Holtzman,
then.
also, which is loosely based on the Gregory Maguire 1993 novel, The Reimagining of the Oz books, and the 1939 Wizard of Oz. But the film stars Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, Ariana Grande as Galinda, with Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Slater, Bowen Yang, to name a few. Set in the land of Oz before Dorothy Gale's arrival from Kansas, its plot follows Elphaba, the future Wicked Witch of the West, and her friendship with her classmate Galinda, who becomes Galinda the Good.
Yeah, great movie. Obviously, they good source material. Everyone in it did phenomenal. I really liked it. again, this definitely goes up toward the top of my list as well. Um, and so, yeah, there's not a lot to say other than I had high expectations. They were exceeded. I know that there's a second part, Wicked for Good, that's coming out um, next year, I guess. I personally probably could have sat in the theater and watched that second part after the first part. That's how
Unlike the
engrossed I
Brutalist.
was. Yeah, but the difference is it's about something. You see, that's the main difference. And so that's how good it was. I was genuinely genuinely would have been willing to sit down and watch another 2.5 hours of Wicked, um, after watching the 2.5 hours or whatever it was of the first half. So that was the only thing I was skeptical about was how long it was, almost 3 hours long. Did not disappoint. Everyone was cast perfectly. Everybody performed perfectly. The story is great. It was shot well. It was visually interesting, which makes sense because it's in Oz. Yeah, no notes. Great movie. It's not going to win Best Picture because let's just be honest, it's not.
Mhm.
But it's definitely one of the best three movies of the year, I would say.
Oh
Both
yeah,
in terms of what I think, and I genuinely think of the movies we've discussed, it is like on its actual merits one of the best three.
it's the most cinematic. If you
Oh
want
yeah.
to, with the exception, maybe if you want to argue Dune, but I feel like you still have to have a special eye for that one. But
Well, that
anyway, if you
and
get into Wicked,
Wicked was more, yeah,
yeah,
more accessible. If Dune was more, I mean,
raw. Oh yeah,
It's almost like Oppenheimer and Barbie.
in a way,
Dune and
yeah.
Wicked were almost like Oppenheimer and Barbie. Obviously, they didn't come out together, so there was no like marketing campaign for it. But
Wicked
like,
Dune.
right, but like Dune was more serious, a little bit grittier. This epic tale, like Oppenheimer was, frankly. Oppenheimer, by the way, the brutalist should have taken notes. Much
On
better
how to
for a
do a
long
long
movie.
movie.
Yes, much better
Like,
long movie.
man,
Because it was about something. I knew what it was about. But yeah, no, Wicked. Yes, it was just as cinematic as Dune, but far more accessible.
indeed, indeed, and remember when they tried to link Gladiator 2 and Wicked
If
together? Gladiator 2, I don't think has one nomination.
no, but remember when I said we were never gonna get Barbenheimer again. They've tried multiple times, and it's never worked, and it never will work because now they're trying. Now the studios want it to happen. Barbenheimer was not a studio creation; that was a fan creation.
Yes, it was by accident that they put it
Yes.
together. But all in all, to make the best picture picks, I think it should go to Honora. It's also your Vegas favorite. I think for a film that was, I feel the most original story amongst this, with incredible performances, with legit high stakes, and just a very moving story at some parts,
Hmm.
with characters that I despised, got annoyed by, and characters I absolutely loved and adored. I think it was an awesome story with
Hmm.
an indie film director who should get his flowers. And I don't he might be the first person to ever win 4 Oscars on one night. It would be for producer,
Hmm.
director, writing, and editing. So if he
Hmm.
could get those four. And I think it's time to show that. I think it'd be a good message for the Academy to give to Hollywood to have this particular film by another A24 indie darling.
Hmm.
I think that should be recognized. And all in all, it was just an entertaining film throughout. Um, it is a quite long. I think it's about 2 hours and 20 minutes, but
Yeah, it's
it
not too
moves.
long.
It move. Compared to what it could be with
Yeah.
this, I think it just pushes it back. It just pushes it forward, and I really enjoy it. So I'm picking a Nora to win it all,
Hmm. I do believe that Honora is gonna win.
and that's who I want to win, and who I think will win too.
Yeah, so I do believe Honora's gonna win for everything you just said. I guess just so we have some variance in this section, I did think my personal favorite of the movies was Conclave. So if I was making the case for Conclave, which is the second most likely to Vegas odds, one, it's timely, which obviously they didn't plan, but it is timely.
It's so right.
That's something. But two, and I think that this is important, it's got a very strong performance from its lead, something
Yeah,
that Honora, frankly, does as well. But
but she's very young too. She's
yeah,
got a lot of years ahead.
yes, and I think that, I mean, the way that the story layered his doubts and his faith, his
Mhm.
doubts and his abilities, and then of course his doubts in becoming pope, which at one point looks incredibly likely. I think that really that performance alone is enough reason to really see the film, and I think it grounds the film in such a way that it has a shot to win for Best Picture. Obviously, it's an intriguing concept. It's not an addition, not a completely original concept, but it's intriguing nonetheless. There's not a lot of movies done about the papacy. There's not a lot of
No.
any content done about it. They had what the young pope and the two popes are the only things I know about that. Both of those are series. Both of those are
That's the Judd Law one, right?
young pope is Jude Law, yeah.
Young Pope.
And then there's the two popes, which is based on Francis and Benedict. But anyway,
Mhm.
um, so it's an area that is not frequently discovered. It's an area that I think resonates today, even beyond the conclave of it all. Just we're in a time where moral leadership is important, and the Pope in real life and in the movie does end up providing that, even though it's easy for them not to, based on
Yeah,
the
I'm
other
sure if
options.
they are going to get ready for a conclave soon, there will be secrets that they will discover
Yes,
amongst
so
this.
I think that that's the case I'll make for Conclave. I think it will though go to an or.
I wouldn't be disappointed with that. Uh, I just, one more look, I think maybe I'd feel some type of way if Amelia Perez gets it, or
They
even
won't win.
Complete Unknown, or Doom. Actually, maybe I do with you. You know what? I'm all Honora, all the way. So that'll complete this portion of the show. Now let's go through some of the other categories quickly. We
Mhm.
have your best actor. Let's start with that. Your best male actor, Mr. Page. We got Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, playing Laszlo Toth.
Mhm.
Timothy Chalamet, A Complete Unknown, as Bob Dylan. Coleman Domingo, Sing Sing, as John Divine G. Whitfield. I haven't seen that yet, but it's about a real life, the Sing Sing prison, and creating an arts
Mhm.
program. I would like to see that down the road. Ray Fiennes, Conclave, as Cardinal Thomas Lawrence, and Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice, playing somebody you know, Donald Trump. All
Yeah.
right. Now, I don't think I've seen 4 out of the 5. I haven't seen Coleman Domingo, but I like him. He's good.
Mhm.
I thought these were all really good performances.
I agree.
I actually think Ray Fiennes should be the one to get it. He's
Mhm.
had a long career spanning many decades, a well-established character lead star.
Yeah.
Don't see that a lot. A lot of your stars, they just play themselves in different roles.
Yeah.
Um, with the exception like a Leo is a legit character actor, I would argue, with the exception of
Mhm.
his screaming. He's in every movie. But I think he should get his for a career with a body of work like that. I think Rafe should get it once and for all. Who's played big mainstream movies, big deal. He's played Voldemort, the
Yeah,
villain Harry
Voldemort.
Potter.
The Voldemort.
I mean, he even though it's not bad the time he's played a Nazi before too,
Yeah.
which he got nominated for an Oscar about 30 years ago. But he's also played like the one of the best characters in Wes Anderson films ever. I just can't
Mhm.
think of the guy's name. He's great in there. He's funny and in Burgess and stuff like that. So,
I really like the menu. He's good in the
Menu's
menu.
great. So I think it's a good time to, a lot of people give long time actors like here's an Oscar for your body of work,
Yeah.
and I think this should be his year for that. Agent Brody already has an Oscar. Plus, there's been leaks about how AI is actually helped his dialogue. So I mean, you can't
Mm.
act with the AI helping you there.
I heard
Again, I
that that
haven't
was
seen.
mostly to just train Adrian Brody, though. I don't think they added it to the movie. I think he was practicing with the AI,
It could be.
which I don't mind. If that's what happened, if he was just listening to an AI say his lines like a Hungarian person would, I've got no problem with that. If they used AI to correct his accent in the actual film product, then yeah, that's kind of cheating. But sorry, I
Yeah,
just wanted to throw that out there.
no problem. for that. So that's my pick for that.
Hmm.
Honestly, Sebastian Stan was great as the apprentice. I don't know, I'd like to hear your thoughts. I actually felt I was surprised with Trump how he really made him a sympathetic figure in the beginning of the movie, I felt, and then
Hmm.
turn into this who, as you see him turning into the man he is now, and just absolutely despising, said some despicable things throughout, which is on brand. But
Hmm.
I like the characterization Stan put into Donald Trump, though I think he had a better performance in I can't just think of the name right
Like the
now.
Elephant Man one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a better performance. But I thought it was great. And then Timothy Chalamet, should we give my thoughts on it first or yours? You want to
I
put
think
in
we have very similar thoughts. This
Okay.
movie is
So
not the one for him to win on.
yes, Timothy Chalamet, who's probably had one of the best Oscar campaigns ever in the
Yes.
last 2 years, which started on College Game Day till now. Um, listen, Timothy Chalamet is your number one A-list male actor,
Mhm.
29 years old, is a box office draw
Yep.
who has legitimate talent and can transform into different characters. He has a whole career in life ahead of him. I think nothing against him. He's already been nominated twice.
Mhm.
Nothing against him, but I think just wait it out a little longer. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
And
this
give
is
it
not the
to
movie either. I think that we should,
exactly.
if
With
this was
Bob
the
Dylan,
movie, this was the movie, but it's not.
yeah, with Bob Dylan, again, anyone can look like this and blowing in the wind and stuff like that, I'm just saying we know what he sounds like in his impression. It's not the hardest one. I'll give credit for his singing. His singing was actually singing and
Yeah,
guitar
singing
was
was good. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely spectacular. But I don't know. I just feel like that's a very common one. Everybody can do a Bob Dylan impression.
Yeah, and this was again, but just in general, like I said, the movie itself to me
Yeah.
wasn't the one. The
So
performance was fine, but it wasn't the right movie, and it didn't showcase him the right way. I
exactly. I
don't
think
think
he's
it
done
should
much
be.
better. He's done
Yes.
much more Oscar worthy
Oh yeah.
performances. And
Earlier in his career, he's done more Oscar. His turn as King Arthur was really good.
yeah,
That was
exactly.
super early in his career.
Right.
So
So
like, yeah, he'll be fine. I don't think it should be him.
yeah, I think he's gonna. So Adrian Brody's actually still a heavy favorite to win his second Oscar.
Yeah, I don't
Right
know.
now I saw at 68% that they think he's gonna win, but I think it's gonna go to Timothy Chalamet. I think just with the
You
Oscar
do, yeah.
campaign, winning
Campaign's
SAG,
been good. Yes.
and I just think he's just so likable, and maybe Hollywood wants to start recognizing a new generation. Well, this would be a good way to start it. Plus, he'd be the youngest Oscar winner ever. Sorry, the youngest male
Oscar. Whatever, yeah.
Oscar for a leading role win ever. And I won't be disappointed or mad that he'd win, but I do think in terms of this being a popularity contest, there's no one who could be more of a favorite in that sense.
Yeah.
Oh, right now Vegas still has Brody winning it, and by a large favorite. But don't be surprised if Chalamet swoops in.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be Adrian Brody. I actually agree with both. You said that Finesse would be your pick and Chalamet is the most likely. I'm with you
Yeah.
100%. I think they want to give it to Timothy Chalamet. I think Timothy Chalamet clearly wants it. That's why he's been campaigning so hard. And so I think he's gonna get it. I think
Also,
the
my one
Adrian
thing too. Oh, sorry, you
Yeah.
could
I was just gonna say I think the
go
Adrian
into it.
Brody stuff, again, really good performance. It's just
He's already won. That's another big thing
I
too.
don't. Yeah, so I don't necessarily care about if you already won because if you were the best performance, but it's just really hard, in my opinion, to have the best performance in a boring movie. Like no,
Yeah,
seriously, like as much like
I agree
technically
with
good
you.
acting, if no one cares about it because the movie itself wasn't good, I would say Sebastian Stan has a better shot than Adrian
Oh
Brody
yeah.
because again, it was good acting and it was also an interesting movie. The Brutalist was just not that interesting a movie. You know what I mean? Like it was an art house film extended on for way too long. And so I think that that will ultimately hurt Adrian Brody. Again, the Chalamet agenda is clear, but I don't. So I think that's who it's going to be, even though it's not who I want. Yeah.
Oh my god. So good stuff there, but Timmy, this might be your time, man. Can I ask you one thing, Ryan? Do you
Sure.
think if he wins an Oscar at an extremely young age of 29, do you think it's weird? Some people believe in an Oscar curse, that some people's careers do dwindle a little bit after.
Yeah,
Do you,
I
I
don't think
mean,
so.
if he wins an Oscar at 29, what is the you know, what's left? You've won the number one thing in film
Yeah,
acting.
I mean, I
Now,
would
if you
say,
truly love acting, then that shouldn't matter at all.
of
And I
course.
think some actors show that they don't care. They still do it for the love of the game. But I don't know. Do you think that this changes he'll just have the Oscar, and will he continue to push hard? That was the one thing with Leo, making him wait until his late 40s, early 50s.
Mm.
They just always kept snubbing him. Just keeps to the point where he literally had a role where he literally crawled his way, not literally scratched and clawed
Yeah,
his way to an Oscar. I
out
think
out
that
of the
actually,
bear.
I feel,
Yeah.
I feel like that somewhat kind of helped him motivate him to continue to take on these roles. But I don't know. I'm curious. Maybe, maybe not. But if
I
he wins an
think
Oscar, what else has he got to do?
so. I think his career won't suffer because the next movie he's going to make is Dune 3. And so it'll make him a gazillion dollars. It'll keep his name out there. He'll get to do a large campaign promoting that. And so he'll get to continue to show his personality. And yeah, he might end up honestly being more selective in the roles he takes. Um, either making financially maxing them out or going the opposite direction. He's made a lot of money. He's already won an Oscar. He'll take risks because who
Dates
cares?
Kylie Jenner, gets a lot of money.
We
Literally,
already
just
he's already
perfect.
doing that, yeah. But yeah, so I do think an early win could change the way he sees his career, but I don't think it'll make it a negative impact.
All right, yeah, I don't think so either. I was just curious if he'd like slow down, or he's like, you know what? It's a good time to take a 5-year, a 10-year break.
No, I don't think he's there. He's not currently at that spot in his career. He's not even 30.
Right. Like for instance, you remember Sandra Bullock?
Yeah.
She was a huge star. She won her Oscar. I haven't seen her in like forever.
Yeah,
Seriously.
that's true. No, that's true.
So I don't know. Not that that matters either, but we'll see. Now let's go with the actress, the best actress,
Hmm.
female lead. You got right now. You have Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba from Wilked. Carla Sofia Gascon from as Emilia Perez slash Juan Montes del Monte. Mikey Madison and Honora as Honora Annie
Hmm.
McHeva. Demi Moore in The Substance as Elizabeth Sparkle. Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here as Eunice Paiva. So it seems that the favorite here is Demi Moore.
Nope.
With the what?
Nope. Not gonna be her.
Well, I'm just saying she's the favorite
Oh
in
yeah, I'm sure
Vegas
she
now,
is, but
but
nope, she's not gonna win.
in the exact opposite and why we think Ralph Fiennes should win the award. A lot of people think this would be a reward for Demi Moore's body of work. Been an actor for 40 years, stays relevant and stayed relevant this whole time. This is actually her first nomination ever.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah,
I feel bad saying that now, but she shouldn't win it.
that's what some people
I
Carla
shouldn't say
Sofia
I shouldn't
Gascon.
say that. She was good. I wouldn't be upset if she won. She was good. The
Yeah,
movie itself ended poorly,
right.
but before then it was a good movie, and she was good in that movie.
Carla Sofia Gascon with old tweets coming back to
Yeah,
haunt
it's
her that might kill
she's
her.
done. Yeah, she's done.
Could we have Cynthia Erivo already won a Tony? And
I
then get
would.
Wicked.
That's who I would pick if we're being totally honest with you. That's
We,
my sentimental favorite. I don't think she's gonna win it, but if she's Cynthia Erivo is definitely the one I think who deserves it. Uh, Elphaba's obviously a pretty iconic character, a very interesting character because people have know a different version of that character from The Wizard of Oz, one of the most famous movies ever. And so to play that role and to command that role like she did, I think is absolutely worthy of Best Actress, but it's probably going to go to Mickey Madison.
yeah, that's another one
Because it's
too.
going to win Best Picture,
Well, just
and
I've
yeah.
heard the only thing I've heard with Demi Moore of her that they think she's just too young to honor her. But she's only 4 years younger than Timothy Chalamet, so
I mean, we got to get over this age. If they're the Best Actress nominated, then that's who should win.
And I've heard a lot of people really like Fernando Torres's role
I
too.
can't speak to that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I
But
haven't
yeah.
seen, but I would go with Mikey Madison too. So we'll go with that. Now your
Yeah.
supporting actor, right? Your
Hmm.
supporter actor and actresses. We'll combine them in this. We first have number one. We first have for best supporting actor Yuri Borisov, Honora. He played Igor. Kieran
Yes.
Culkin, a real pain as Benji Kaplan. Edward Norton, a complete unknown as Pete Seeger. Guy Pearce, the brutalist as Harrison Lee Van Buren Sr. Jeremy Strong, the apprentice as Roy Cohn. No doubt, the two Succession bros were my favorite performances in this. I gotta give it to Kieran Culkin. Did you see Real Pain?
I did not. I know that he's the favorite, and I just as soon say that he'll probably win it. I
Great
did
movie. Watch
see,
it on Hulu if you
yeah,
get a chance.
but I did see Jeremy Strong in The Apprentice, and I think of the people that I saw, meaning everybody else on that list, I would give it to Jeremy Strong.
Oh yeah, that's transforming into a
Yeah.
character.
But I
And
didn't see Kieran Culkin, so if he's the favorite and I haven't seen the movie, I have to assume that's who's going to win. But of
yeah.
everyone I saw, I honestly he could do it, but Jeremy Strong would be an upset. I think everyone would be in agreement just because of how good Kieran
Oh yeah,
Culkin apparently did. But I could see it happening.
yeah,
You
he's
know.
literally won every single acting award they could give. Heck, if they did the kid he could have won a Kids Choice Award. That's the way he was going. But yeah, his character was very nuanced, emotional, funny, learned a lot from it, and I really would love to see Kieran Culkin just a year removed from winning an Emmy, get an Oscar soon
Yeah,
after. Pretty cool.
have to head to the stage to get
Well,
that
he is.
Tony.
He's going to be
Yeah.
on Broadway for
Yep.
Gary Glidden Ross.
And that's why he's doing it. I guarantee you. Can he sing? I don't know. That'll be the hard part.
Well, it's not a musical; it's a straight play. So,
No, but he's got the EGOT. He's got to get the G for EGOT, right?
oh, to get a Grammy, maybe he could get
Yeah.
maybe he could get a spoken word
Maybe can
for
you
a
get something for
Grammy.
writing stuff, right? Don't they have one for writing?
For Grammys. Yeah,
And
anything in recorded audio. So
yeah, so if he writes a song, he could get something.
sure he could get in the
Yeah.
Grammy for that, or that just the triple crown of acting they call it, the Emmy,
Well, yeah,
Tony,
yeah, of
and
course.
Oscar.
And Oscar,
So
yeah.
and then for actress in a supporting role, Monica Barbero, Complete Unknown, Joan Baez, Ariana Grande, Wicked as Galinda, Felicity Jones, the Brutalist as Elizabeth Trough,
Yeah.
Isabella Rossellini, and
No.
Conclave as
How
Sister
did she
Agnes,
sorry.
Zoe Saldana, Emilia Perez, Rita Mora Castro. I like Zoe Saldana. Actually, that's gonna be my pick with it.
Yeah, I worry that it won't be Zoe Saldana just because of the
Backlash.
Amelia Perez backlash, but I wouldn't be mad if it was her. I think they might go with Ariana Grande. Because let's be clear,
I do not think they're
they're
gonna go
not going
Ariana
with
Grande.
They're not going with Cynthia Erivo. As much as I want them to, they're not. They're gonna go with Nikki Madison. So it's not like, oh, we're gonna give all of our awards to Wicked because they won't do that. You know what I mean? But assuming Wicked's only gonna win Best Musical now, because Amelia Perez exploded. Yeah, you could give it to Ariana Grande. And I think that just because Amelia Perez exploded and she's the next best person, I mean, I guess if it's neither of them, it would be Monica Barbera. But I don't think
S-
Isabella Rossellini should not win.
She's
She's
second. She's second
she had
in the
14. She
movie.
had the world's smallest part. Listen, Conclave, my favorite movie of them, is a sausage fest. Why? It's about priests, guys. They're all men, all of them. She has a very small role, and she does it fine. But she does not this very small role. I would be shocked to my core if she won because
I would be shocked if Ariana Grande won.
she is the least consequential person on that list. I would say again because Amelia Perez is so toxic, I would look at Ariana Grande or Monica Barbaro as the front runners, but Zoe Saldana is definitely still in the running and is probably who I would pick. So I'm going to go with Ariana Grande just because I have to pick between her or Barbaro, and as who I think will win, but I would love to see Zoe Saldana win. There we go.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Now your best original. So after that, we have our director, best director, and we first have Sean Baker, who directed Anora. We have Brady Corbett in The Brutalist, James Mangold, A Complete Unknown, Jaquez Ayudard, and Amelia Perez, Corelli, Bargett, The Substance. You got to give it to Sean Baker. I think that's a runaway on that one. Or Brady Corbett, maybe too, because he definitely directed the shit out of that movie. But give it to Sean Baker. Do the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. I mean, again, a lot of times Best Picture goes and Best Picture and Best Director go to hand in hand, and I think Honora is the clear favorite for Best Picture. So I agree, Sean Baker.
Get it. Let's get it. So why don't we do our original and adapted screenplays? Obviously, original screenplays. You originally wrote it for the screen.
Yeah.
Your adaptation, you adapted it from something. So with our best writing for original screenplay, Honora, Sean Baker, The Brutalist, Brady Corbett, A Real Pain, and Jesse Eisenberg. September 5th, a film about another timely one. September 5th, 1972 Munich Olympics, where Palestinians attacked the Israel wrestling team.
Yeah.
And then The Substance, Corelli Fargett. Best writing, Ryan. That gets a best writing film. Man, I actually really like Jesse Eisenberg's A Real Pain a lot, but I would give it to Honora. Jesse Eisenberg, if he has these screenplays in him, definitely hope he gets more films out that way. So I will go with, again, Sean Baker and Honora, but I really like Jesse Eisenberg in Real Pain.
So you're probably right. It'll be one of those two. I'm gonna do something crazy though. I'm gonna make the case for The Substance.
Even though you just shitted on it, and
I
especially
did.
the core of it with the actual writing itself.
That's right. Here's why.
Please elaborate.
So, when you're reading a screenplay, it has to be entertaining. I think on the screen, what they wrote was trash. However, take it off the screen. I get it. With the exception of the very last shot, which was trash both in writing and in film. I understand the idea that a mix of the two would create a monster, and that's the monster that would ultimately end up killing both Sue and Elizabeth. A horror movie, or a horror story, rather, if you read horror novels, as an example, will a lot of times hit that act, right? That'll get to that final act, and suddenly everything is off the fucking rails because it's a horror story.
Yeah.
And when you read it, and I love horror stories, I love reading them, I love writing them, they are fine. I have no problem reading them. When committed to film, when I'm expecting to see a Hollywood ending, I don't like it. So, The Substance, I think, is well written. Certainly the first 90% is well written. I think the ending is very common of the horror genre, especially the body horror genre, where usually the metamorphosis is grotesque. And obviously they had the grotesqueness of Elizabeth Sparkle being, leached of her life force, but grotesque is the name of body horror. That's the whole point of it. So I do understand why they did it. It did not translate well onto film.
Yeah, so sometimes I've heard the adage, or I'll let you finish your point, sorry.
But yeah, so it didn't translate well to film, but I think if I read it as a novel, and especially with original screenplay, you kind of have to just take that off of vibe. I think it could have worked.
Yeah, I just think
Still trash for a movie though.
it'll come down. I think I've heard the adage, a really good was it a great screenplay? A director can't fuck up a great screenplay. Sorry. Was it or God, I just heard this. It's the adage that a director The director, it's all on the director. A
Right.
director can make a bad screenplay good.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for a director to fuck up a good screenplay, but they could fuck it up though.
Yeah.
So, having said that, if the
So you could
story
blame the director. Yeah.
was could that have been
Yeah.
on a directing point?
But it could
If
have
the story was right there.
Yeah.
Like if it was right there, like if you're the novelization of this,
been. Right.
maybe it was there. Interesting take though. I like it. So that'll complete the Oscars. Of course, if you're interested in other nominations, I love always seeing who wins the cinematography, sound design, best documentary, even though none of the documentaries are mainstream at all. Very interesting choice. Or short film or
Real
best
quick
short
though,
films,
who'd you pick
animation
for
stuff.
adapted screenplay? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Did I say did we go over those? I apologize.
No, but I mean,
Um,
it's
it's a
everybody we
it's a
know.
complete unknown conclave. Amelia Perez, Nickel Boy, Sing Sing. Actually, kind of hard. I don't think any of these screenplays stuck out. I guess. Well, no. I shouldn't say that. I really like the Nickel Boys again. I think Ramel Ross did get snubbed for director, absolutely.
Mm,
But the screen, what made the film was the visual aspect of it too.
right.
This is hard, and I haven't seen Sing Sing, but give it Conclave.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be Conclave, but I'm curious to see if Nickel Boys wins because it's one of the favorites actually. But anyway, sorry. Continue with
So
your closing bit. Just want to make sure we got our last pick on the record.
absolutely, we always love to talk about the Golden Raspberry Awards that honors the worst in film, as we do every year. They do it the day before the Oscars. We talked about Sandra Bullock, the only person to ever accept her worst act. She actually won Worst Actress and Best Actress in the same calendar year, and actually accepted the award. So good sport, Sandra Bullock.
Yes.
Um, the worst films released in 2024. Let me ask you, Ryan. This might actually be a surprise. What film do you think got the most nominations?
It'd be funny if it was Amelia Perez.
No, Millie
I know.
Perez does not have one Golden Raspberry
It would be
nomination.
funny if it was though. Um, hmm, I don't know.
You'd be surprised. It's actually a big mainstream film, big studio
Is it?
mainstream film.
Oh God, I don't even know what big studio films have come out this year.
Do you want me to just tell you?
Yeah. Let's hear.
From Warner Brothers, Joker 2, Joker for Les Deux was
Ah,
the
okay,
most
yeah.
nominated Golden Raspberry Award.
That makes sense. That was kind of a bad movie.
And if we're gonna do our worst picture, Ryan, really quick,
Mm-hmm.
it's either Borderlands,
Okay.
Joker Folie à Deux, Madam Web, Megapolis, the big Francis Ford Coppola
Yeah.
disaster, and Reagan. Movie about Ronald Reagan. I'm gonna have to go with Joker Folie à Deux. I think just how
I mean, the meme
true.
could make it Madam Web, right?
Oh man, that movie was straight up bad, but for the expectations Joker 2 had
True,
and how they
yeah.
didn't even seem to try
Yeah,
to
no,
make it
I
a good
guess
movie,
you, yeah.
I think you gotta
I hear you.
honor
That
it
makes
by giving
that
it
makes
that.
sense. No, that makes sense. But I do think it could be Madam Web. I want to just point that out
Oh
because
yeah,
that was a bad
in the
movie.
sense that that movie just didn't work.
Yeah, it was a bad
Joker
movie.
Folia, dude, it's the worst type because they didn't even try. I think they actually tried with Madam Web.
Which is why Madam Web is so enjoyable, despite being one of the worst movies of the year, because
I do.
everyone tried.
I think that'll help in a cult status.
Oh, it absolutely. It's already done it. It's already worked in a cult status a little bit. But anyway,
So we'll go with that as your worst picture.
sure. Why
And
not?
just
Madam Web.
curious, with your worst actor, it's either Jack Black as Santa from Dear Santa,
Okay.
Zachary Levi, Harold and the Purple Crayon,
That
Joaquin
one.
Phoenix, Joker Folie à Deux, Dennis Quaid as Reagan, Ronald Reagan, Jerry Seinfeld, and Auden Frosted. If you remember, see that movie about the Frosted?
I've seen that movie. I love
Did
that
you actually
movie.
saw it?
He was horrible in it,
I
but
actually
I
didn't
loved
see
that
it. I really
movie.
wanted to too.
Oh God.
About the making the
Hugh
Pop Tart.
Grant. Hugh Grant. Phenomenal. Loved
He's
every second of that.
he's nominated for worst director, worst actor in this.
Who Seinfeld?
Yeah.
He was bad in it, yeah, but he's not good in anything because he just plays himself. I think it'll probably go to Levi though.
Dude, I just love these nominations
Yeah.
just quickly. The worst screen combo, any two obnoxious characters from Borderlands. The
That'll probably win.
entire cast of Megapolis.
That's funny.
You gotta give Joaquin and Lady Gaga. Give me that one.
No, it won't be them. They weren't the worst of those
Well,
groups.
they got nominated, so they
Sure,
could
but
have
they
won.
weren't the worst.
Any interest, Ryan, in the Reagan film where Dennis Quaid and Penelope Ann Miller as Ronnie
No,
and Nancy? Any interest
no,
in that?
no.
I really actually think you find it on. I'm not kidding. On the Fox News
I'm
original.
sure you do. I'm sure you do.
and,
Positive you do.
and we'll see who can win who can win this year's Razzie, the Razzie Redeemer Award, where
Mm,
you actually come back from your Razzie. You have to win the Razzie and then fix your career. No nominations to be announced. I just
interesting.
can't think off the top of my head who that is, but
I don't know I don't know who's won a Razzie that would be up for an award this year, but
Will Smith has won this 3 times.
he's
Why
run the
doesn't win?
Redeemer 3 times,
Yes, he's won the Redeemer
which
three
means he's
times.
made 3 great movies after making 3 shit movies.
According
Very
to
up and
this.
down. Very up and down, Will Smith is.
And Keanu Reeves is second. Man,
Ah,
leave Keanu alone.
poor kid.
By the way, if you were curious for context, Fran Drescher won last year simply because of her spearheading the Actors Guild to the strike. And she technically won the award because she was nominated for Worst Actress in 1998, so that's why they gave it to her.
Perfect. I love
So
that.
good stuff there.
Good
All
stuff,
right,
Fran.
good stuff, Ryan. So we are not gonna do a separate reaction episode. We're gonna put it as probably the opening segment of the tweet cap on Monday.
Yep.
So check out the tweet cap on Monday for our reaction to the Oscars with Jose, and we'll see if we'll see what he says in terms of the nominations.
Yeah, we'll get what's it called, predictions and reactions from Jose in real time after the Oscars.
Exactly. But great work as always, Ryan. Good stuff. And we'll see what happens. So check it out. ABC, 8 o'clock, Sunday night, Eastern Standard Time. Hosted by Conan O'Brien, your 97th Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Can't
stuff.
wait.
Can't wait too. Thank you, Ryan.
See ya.